I'll just give a brief introduction to the thought process behind this particular series. Raven and Amy and Lori and myself have worked to put together a 6-week program called Lamentation and Celebration. We recognize that this season and the seasons of the past 2 years, we have lamented and have a lot of grief, a lot of loss that we've experienced, and this is certainly the journey of the cross as well. But we also recognize, Sundays are feast days, and we set those things aside on Sundays and we celebrate. So the series is Lamentation and Celebration, and what we hope to do is take a series of videos that we will start each session with, which focuses on a particular topic, and then we will discuss those videos with a series of questions, and then we conclude our time with a ritual that incorporates those themes. Many of these videos are drawn from what's called the Work of the People, which is described as a spiritual visual library, and we've purchased a subscription to that we, who knows, might be using some in our own worship from time to time. They're beautiful, beautiful videos. Hey, Terry, come on in. By Travis Reed, and he interviews theologians and pastors and musicians and lots of different people across the spectrum, because he wanted a place that held our grief and our pain, and a place where we could groan as our wounds healed, and to have honest dialogue about transformation and how hard and disruptive that it can be. So our first film today is by Alexander John, and do you know how to pronounce Shia? Alexander John Shia. And the film is called Holy Dark and Holy Light. So we're going to watch that and then engage in some discussion about that.
Every element that we might talk about, whether it's darkness or whether it's light, are partial expressions of who our God is, because all of this has been created. All of this is poured forth out of the mouth of our God. So for me, I pull back in my thoughts and in my words today from linking darkness with pain or chaos or even suffering. Because what I also know is that those same experiences can be described as light. We know that the most destructive force in the cosmos is a nuclear expression, is a nuclear explosion. And a nuclear explosion is the closest thing to all light that we have in experience. So when I think of the wheel of nature, and I bring myself back to nature and away from philosophical concepts, because light doesn't exist anywhere. Light is made up of shadow, and dark doesn't exist anywhere, because dark is also made up of radiance. But when I know the wheel, which I keep talking about, the rhythm of transformation, and the wheel of the seasons, which is an example of transformation, then I know that primarily the darkness is an experience of the place that God begins us anew. And I know that from that place of darkness, God journeys with us to a place in the summer of highest height of light, radiance, around the summer solstice. And that light is for the explosion of growth that has come forth out of the darkness. But then we also know that in the wheel, that time of great light wanes and moves back to the dark. That life and transformation and the journey of transformation and the Christ is always darkness birthing light and light returning to darkness. And God saw that all of it is good. And it's really important for us, especially Westerners, but perhaps for all of us, to redo some really painful understandings which happened in the Middle Ages, and that we continue, and my God, we continue it in our church language, and it's hurtful, and it needs to stop. It needs to stop by our first by our awareness, and then ultimately by our changing our church books. And that is this proclamation that God is light. What a bunch of hooey! Do we realize that every time we say that, we split the cosmos? We say to God that half of God's creation is not of God? Do we realize that the most destructive force on the planet is a nuclear explosion, which is the closest thing we have to light? God is not light. God is light and darkness. God is darkness and light. And people of dark skin are beautiful expressions of God's creation, as well as people of light skin. And it goes on and on and on and on. And every one of our hymns paints pain and suffering as a darkness. Stop it! It's hurting us. Whether we realize it or not, it's fracturing us inside. We are schizophrenic. Pain is not dark. Suffering is not dark. Pain and suffering may equally be light. And we need to correct our language as part of the way that we bring ourselves back to the healing wholeness and the grace that our God wishes for us. Now, we've got a long journey ahead, and my passion is not about shame or guilt. My passion is about, let's together begin to wake up. Let's together begin to look through our quotes, our hymns, our church language, and let's begin to bring awareness and make another step in healing for ourselves and the generations that come after us. We have a magnificent God. And our magnificent God is both holy darkness and holy light, and an abundance of radiance throughout every cell of the cosmos.
Share. There we go. So we've been working through just coming up with a number of questions to go with the videos as we go, so that we can just kind of open them up to discussion like Alicia and Lori have modeled before with these classes. So we'll just start with one, just kind of from that, the most general place here is, how is it in you to contemplate that suffering and pain are as much God as joy and love? How does that land in you to set thing up?
I think God was loved us enough to be vulnerable to free will. And so when some event occurs, because events occur since we have the will, the freedom to make any event occur, God grieves, cries, weeps with us.
Yeah, I think God is with us in the dark. It's hard to say that God is dark. That's hard to go there. Not impossible. I mean, I can work on it, but I do believe God is with us in the dark. I would concur with that. That's exactly how I feel about it. God was with me in the dark, and it was very consoling. And yeah, without him, it would have really been dark. I mean, if I wasn't a person of faith, it would have really been dark, but he was there.
For me, there's a kind of holiness in the real darkness. It's like a surround of something that embraces me. And so a lot of times in my life, when I've really been devastated, when I've been in pain, it's the surrounding darkness. It's the darkness that I'm in that comforts and nourishes me, that supports me, that loves me, that surrounds me. And I think about Christ's journey to the cross, that there's no way, I mean, that, you know, here he is in Gethsemane saying, take this cup from me. But he realizes there's no way that that could happen and turn out okay. There's just no way. You have to do it. He has to, we have to go through that experience of total dismantling, really, the dismantling of ego consciousness. And a lot of times that really does have to have pain and suffering as real, you know, central part to it. You can't empty without going through that. You know, you can't be, yeah, you just can't. So that Gethsemane experience for me is the kind of the precursor to, okay, here's what it looks like.
I was
What
thinking,
part was the precursor?
That Christ being in such agony about having to do it, you know, and then realizing, yep, I got to do it. And usually for me, it's like it's already happening when I realize that I can't get out of it, you know. It's like, it's already going on. And so but there's still for me this kind of giving in or I don't know exactly what you would say, but kind of a letting go into whatever the pain and suffering is. It's just, okay, here's what I got to do next. All right.
It's an emptying,
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the way you're articulating this, Lori, because I think for me too, I felt held within that darkness. But because of our culture, I mean, it's so strong, this dichotomy we're given between light and dark. And God is even, you know, the light that comes into the dark. But no, that's not my experience. This place is God. And even, I don't want to say that the tragedy or whatever I'm going through is God, but if I don't believe in a split cosmos, it is, right? There's something godly there too. But it reworks my brain to try to think about it like that and to try to talk about it like that, because I've been so conditioned to have these binaries, you know.
I've been thinking of the song that we have sung as the gospel procession for the last 6 weeks. I want to walk as a child of the light. I want to follow Jesus. In him there is no darkness at all.
I was just thinking about that.
I love that song.
this took me back to the Ash Wednesday reflection that I read about the Holy Spirit leading Jesus into the wilderness or the desert. And this whole thing about dark and light takes me into the wildernesses or the deserts of our life and how that is transformative. And it's dark and light, it's all mixed together, but we come out transformed from that wilderness. And I believe we have several wildernesses that we go through in life, sometimes many a year. Sometimes they last moments, sometimes they last weeks, sometimes they can last years. But the Spirit is the one who leads me into that wilderness period, leads me from dark into maybe more dark, but then the angels are there to attend, and eventually the transformation happens, and I can leave that wilderness or desert with light. And then that light will transform again back into some darkness. So that's what was going through my head.
I also thought about our book study and the wonderful book from Barbara Brown Taylor, on learning to walk in the dark, and all the beautiful, restful places and comforting, just surrounded by the darkness, is not a frightening thing.
And I think of the book, The Cottage, I believe is the name of it, where, and I think that's it, I can't remember it. It's either that or the one by the doctor who dies and then decides he'll come back. That once they have arrived where they think God is, it is dark, but they can see. They can tell what's around them. So there is something which we call dark that may not be the same dark that we perceive to be dark. And I can't help but feel that there sometimes in life, pain is meant for a reason, and that usually means a change is needed, a reconnection, a renewing of our relationship with God. God who helps us understand, who helps us through those times. And I think words are not adequate. Dark and light are not adequate because there are all sorts of combinations, lots of grays, lots of fog.
Yeah.
So again, words are not adequate, but they're what we have to connect with one another. And in my dark periods, I have been just energyless, unhappy, probably a pain in the neck to those around me. But once I have made adjustments, realized I have to do some things to make my life better and to connect better, I feel a lightness, and I mean a lightness weight-wise, which is not a color. Anyway, I found this to be very interesting, and so thank you.
Yeah, this is so, I mean, he's so rich for me, this video, because yeah, my mind's just kind of whirling around a bunch of different things. But one of the things is that it's just like we create so much suffering around our negative response to pain, in life, that our pains in life are, we've just created, I really hear what he's saying, like we've so much created it that if we're in pain or if there's something going on that's hard, then something is wrong and bad and evil. And, we've made all of these judgments around the difficult times in life that add to the suffering, that make us feel like something is truly wrong, or that we've done something wrong, or that, the world is wrong, and we compound it with our mind by making this distinction so black and white around, if things aren't going well, then there's something wrong. Well, as in the mind has defined by my upbringing and my culture and, my religion, and that this is the way it's supposed to go and it's not going like that, and therefore it's wrong. and bad, and just like the suffering that we create from those distinctions is just so painful to watch in myself and other people. But that's what we do. That's what we do. And I came from a background where, working to eliminate those distinctions between things, to remove separation. Like, you can go too far that way too, because and exit the human experience, like, and just come to this neutral place of kind of bypass and disconnect around everything's fine no matter what, which negates our experience of moving through it, because we experience it as transformation, as this continuous movement from experience to experience. It's not a flat line of everything equal. But I think somewhere in there, he represents for me like a great way what he was saying of like holding those two things with passion. It is all one thing. God is in everything. It doesn't matter what we're talking about. God is in that thing. How it can't not be that way if all creation comes from God. It just can't rationally. So, but how do we like walk with that as an experience as a person?
It certainly helps to walk with others who see that.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we're surrounded by Job's friends.
Exactly.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
And yet, there's
Yeah.
no purpose for this, that you've been bad. and
Yeah.
This is the reason that you're responsible.
That's a great example.
Yeah, I think about the times when I've had chronic pain, like back in my early 30s, I had really bad chronic back pain. And, so I'd talk about my pain, and immediately I'd get all these ideas for what I could do to cure that, or to make it go away. And a lot of which I had tried already, and it was so frustrating. Somebody would just be with me in my pain. And I was noticing later on, when I was working with battered women, the same thing, that they would always say, people always tell me what to do about this. And I have tried all the things that they have told me, and so the important thing for them too was to be allowed to just sit in their pain and confusion and about that. But as you were talking, Raven, it all of a sudden occurred to me that our whole biological mechanism is set up to reduce pain. It's an organic thing. It's like from those microorganisms that are floating around in the water, and you come at them with something that's sharp and they'll recoil. That's natural. That's what we do. And that may be where our language came from to start with, is that, yeah, we think pain is bad because we're organisms that react to pain by trying to get away from it. And that's the counterintuitive message of Christ as well. It's, hey, look out, you need to go through this. You need to be transformed by this thing, by this pain.
For me, this is a really important place. For me, there's a big distinction between pain and suffering. And I think when I watch our animals, our little guinea pig, she's on hospice right now, we say, it's apparent that she has tumors, and we're not giving her any treatment. But nobody's told her anything about that, right? So she doesn't have a lot of thoughts about how it should be and how it should be different. And so in some ways, she's waking up to different parts of her being, and we are waking up to different relationships with her. She's allowing us to snuggle with her ever more, and it's just beautiful to watch. But I think as a human, I've had times where I shouldn't be in this pain, or what does this pain mean, or when is it going to stop? I have all the thoughts, which are just really challenging. And I've had of course, the people give me lots and lots of advice on how I should treat my heart disease, from I should eat more celery to I should forgive people more, and then I wouldn't have a heart problem. But I've come to see that as, and I see it in the hospital all the time, even with family members talking to the patient, right? And what I see that is almost like a talisman. If I can if I can figure out how to get Lori out of her pain, then I'm never gonna have to experience it. Right?
Or even more simply, I don't want to experience it through Lori.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
I don't want to go there.
But where did we get the idea? I mean, especially people who are of any faith tradition that has stories like ours. That whole book, lots of pain. I mean, if you could take one thing away from that book, it's life is challenging. But we got this idea. And then the next level, I think that I see with patients, which is just heartbreaking, is that I've done something bad to be experiencing this. And that just, and like Felicia said, I think if we are surrounded by people who tell us that and we get that message, it's really hard to break out of that.
Can anyone just shine light on how to be there with others in pain? I mean, other than, don't give them advice, but what else do you do so that they know you're there for them?
Go back and look at the videos of our conversations that we have on death and dying, because your charts were great. That circle and all of those little nuggets of wisdom.
Yeah, one of the weeks we focused just on that, how to companion. We said how to companion the dying, it's the same, how to companion anyone hurting. I think anybody here who's been through pain can speak to this, whatever kind of pain. For me, if somebody shows up, and I mean really shows up, which means they're able to be present with me, that changes my entire experience. But there's a lot we have to do to be able to show up, I think. That doesn't happen in the room, right? To confront our own pain and our own fear.
Or allow it.
Allow it.
That kind of openness to say, okay, this is going to be hard and I'm going to allow it, whether it's your own pain or somebody else's. Yeah.
Is it like, for me, like the advice piece that we're talking about, like I'm in a society or culture like where I really took in like fixing things, like to fix it. Like it's not just not giving it.
Yeah, you got an extra dose.
Extra dose. So it's not just not giving advice, it's like watching how I'm thinking about this. Like, am I thinking about, even if I'm not saying it, am I thinking about how could I fix this? How could I make it better? How could I change it? How could I, and we just were, Amy's introduced me to this concept before, but like thermostat versus thermometer, when you're with someone, like noticing be the thermometer, notice what's happening, notice the pain, the level of pain and what's going on for the person. Don't be the thermostat, don't be trying to change it, trying to change the temperature, trying to change the experience, trying to make it better, trying to, have it be something that it's not.
I heard Parker Palmer, some of you know him, he's just a lovely man. He was speaking about his depression. And he's had 3 periods of depression. And lots of people tried to pull him out of that, which just isn't possible when somebody's in depression. But what was life-giving for him is he had a friend who would come over, I think he said every day, for 30 minutes and hold his feet, would massage his feet. That's it. No need, they didn't need for Parker to do anything. He just held his feet. And that was life-giving because it showed somebody wants to be here with me in this darkness and not try to change in this depression, and try to change me. I love hearing him talk about that because that's a simple thing, right? But it's challenging. It would be really challenging to rest into presence in that moment when probably you want to talk. And
That's a perfect thing to do. I mean, I would love that. What do you do if you're on the phone and there's distance, I mean miles, so you can't go over and spend physical time, but they're telling you of their pain and you want them to know you're there for them? and you say that. Try not to give them any advice, because you know you're not gonna solve the problem. Anything to do there?
Sounds like you're doing it already.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're doing it already. That being on the phone with somebody and just staying connected, I mean, that's huge.
Are you wanting to help them, or are you wanting just to have them just to be there?
I'm wanting for them to feel, some comfort. I want to comfort them.
Mm.
And it could be that you're checking in with them regularly does that.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay to ask too, because on the phone it is hard sometimes, we're not seeing their face, but just to say this stinks, I'm so sorry, and I'm here. And then to ask, would it be helpful for us to, you know, do you want to talk about it? Or do you want to absolutely talk about something else? Right? It depends on your level of intimacy, I think, with the person.
My level of what?
Intimacy
Oh,
with the
yeah.
person, and if you're comfortable asking that.
Yeah, very comfortable.
Yeah, you might want to say, because some days I definitely want to talk about what I'm going through, and some days I just want to be treated as a person, not for people to forget what I'm going through, but not for it to be so center. So that could be something over time that you could check in about too. But I think you just consistently showing up on the phone is huge.
Can I add some?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think conversations like the one we're having right now actually are really helpful too, because if we sincerely understand that the good times and the bad times are part of the human experience, then there's a kind of a mutuality that happens. Or I guess that's what I feel like I'm learning. There's some kind of mutuality when I'm with someone who's sick, because I've been sick before, I will be sick myself. So I can just be with them instead of having kind of a difference in status, like I'm the healthy person, you're the sick person. So just kind of embracing that, the harder parts of humanity as well as the good parts. I feel like it keeps me more stable when I am with people who are really suffering acutely, because it's just part of the deal, and it's part of my deal too.
Thank you, Elaine.
I found that with people or friends that I'm really close to, that sometimes just being on the phone is not enough. And so we'll switch to FaceTime and be able to see each other and just hold each other in that space. And sometimes we just sit there together. Other times we cry. Sometimes there's a prayer. Other times the person will want to talk, and I just sit back and listen and nod and acknowledge. And I found that to be helpful for both myself and other people. So that's another possibility of being on the phone, but seeing each other as you are together.
As we've been talking, I wonder if darkness and separation are not synonyms. So darkness is different. It's a state of being also, but it's more physical. I mean, there's not light, there's dark. And separation is different from that.
Separation is different than dark. Well, in this instance, what's giving her emotional darkness is separation from her only child in his family. It's heart-wrenching.
But why do we make that synonymous with dark? And I think that's the point he's making. Why is that synonymous with darkness, when darkness can be a comfort? We have to sleep. We close our eyes, and when we close our eyes, it's dark, and that's refreshing, that's healthy, that's restored.
And it's actually the first gift. I learned this from a rabbi friend of mine. It's the first gift that God gives humans, right? Because the first gift is Sabbath to us, because we're made right before Sabbath. But Sabbath starts when? In the evening. So that's really the first. Rest and dark is the first gift. It's not the light. So that's great.
And they were both good.
Both good, exactly. And I think
He called them both good. It's
maybe you
our
can
story
speak to
begins.
this. I'm gonna try to. So in some forms of Buddhism, Tibetan and thinking, we work a lot with, it's so similar to our creation story, that in the beginning, what is existent altogether is oneness. So that might be called consciousness. And Raven used to really do a sound practice with seed syllables to bring that oneness down into firmament, down into material matter, right?
Yeah.
So it's all about that everything is one. We know God is in everything, but part of this world is a series of separations. And the first one was dark and light. But what we did with that is we made one good and one bad.
And it's really, I really think that's, you know, in those things, it's like, that's the ego trying to fix on something. You know, it's the mind and the ego trying to fix the state of things and make it something static, right? And life is not static. You know, with that practice, like you're tracking the transformation of, you know, pure consciousness and light into form, into everything, into the earth, into the full experience, whatever that is, pain, suffering, love, you know, lust, gluttony, gratitude, like the whole thing, and then also bringing that back up, allowing that transformation to complete and taking it back up into a place of
So the
pure
ultimate
existence.
goal though is to bring it back up and have light.
No, the ultimate goal is to feel the full transformation, that it's all one thing,
And
that it's
accept that it's all
constantly
one.
in motion.
See, I think that's where we missed
Constantly.
the point. I can say I'm watching someone go through a lot of pain, and under that is my hope that she'll be out of pain. I can accept her pain, but I want her to be out of pain. And I think that's what I have to.
It's so hard. It's so hard.
You can't.
It's so hard. And that to accept it of you, that's so human, and that's a sign of your love for her. You know, I just, a friend of ours had a medical emergency, and young man got a bacterial infection in his heart, had a valve transplant. And so on the computer updates, his wife just wrote, every day I listen to the mechanical clicking of his heart, and I wish to God it weren't there. And I, as someone who has some stuff, I'm like, oh, I hope that nobody in my family wishes, but I think she's in the place of, we're still paying for the, you know, we're still worried about his health. We're still paying for the bills that we didn't know were coming. And so she's wishing that things were as they were. But my heart was, oh my gosh, he's here because of that sound, right? But that's so human of us to say, I wish this didn't happen. I never have that anymore. I never have that about my condition. But I thought, wow, I hope Raven doesn't look at me and think, I wish she didn't have this part of her. You know, but that is that, yeah, wishing that we weren't in the place that we are.
I like your pointing out to Welfare that this is a process, this is ongoing, this is transformation. You know, the Christian language is, it's the Paschal mystery. There's living and dying and resurrecting and living and dying and resurrecting. It's not like it ends, it's ongoing.
Always in motion is the future. Yeah, but it's like, I think that's really true. And I think, you know, something that's helped me is like, whether it's witnessing someone in pain or being in pain, is, you know, it's noticing that even though it seems like this is going on forever, it's constantly changing. Like even in the moment, the pain is spiking, it's letting go, it's spiking, it's letting go. You know, my response is, I got to fix it. I can rest into witness. I got to witness. I'm in witness. Oh, here I go. You know, it's like there's a constant flow even in that. Like if you can, for me, it's helpful if I can rest my awareness into the continual change, then I'm not so, my mind isn't trying to get out of the situation as much.
Back to Alexander John, and I think, can't pronounce his last
Shia.
name, but
Yeah.
it's the same as Alexander John Scott, so I'll always remember this person's name. Why is pain synonymous with dark? When did we do that and why? Because sometimes I need to get out of the bright sunlight. I need to turn off the light and rest. I'm a napper, so. And so dark, when did we make all of that synonymous? Separation, pain equals dark.
Because we're humans and we like to have everything in a pattern. We like to organize things. We like to have it in a category or something. And it just, then you have more than one word. And you can pick your color, your taste for the day. But it's because we just automatically want to organize everything. Our little egos, or rather large egos, like to.
And his point is that light is more painful.
And sometimes pain is good, right? Sometimes pain is a signifier to me of something that's happening that I need to change or can change or something like that. But I think that we want to just understand it all, and yeah, we like our boxes.
We like to fix other people.
We sure do. Get out of our own pain as quickly as possible. Yeah, I think that's it too, right? To grab onto things that are pleasurable and push away things that are not.
Just thinking about all this comment. I don't know, I have very mixed feelings about it. On the one hand, I can see like embracing darkness. I can embrace that idea of embracing darkness when it's in the context of like trying to completely block it out, and even if you do see darkness as pain or depression, like if you have a habit of just avoiding all pain or thinking all depression is bad, then seeing darkness as pain or depression, and embracing that darkness at times can be a good thing. Because you have to go there, I think, and there can be benefits from that. And you can even experience a different kind of bliss from certain kinds of darkness and sadness. But on the other hand, for me, at least personally, I also like it can actually, I think, increase my pain if I if I think too much that I should, that like it's a mistake to want things to be better. Like I want the light, especially if I feel like I've been in the darkness for so long. And it's like, if on top of that, I get this feeling like, well, like I'm just, my human mind is just trying to change and control things, like that depresses me a lot. Because there are changes that I can make, and when I like feel okay and with making changes, or at least trying, like some personal power to change my own life, like that takes me out of that a little bit. Of course, then trying to actually like force it gets back into like a destructive, or not a good place.
I think that is such the key, right? It's like finding that balance between those things, because you let it go too far one way and you're in bypass and like just like have given up on stuff. And you let it go too far the other way, and then you're trying to control the situation and make it be the way you want it to be. It's like, how do we? I think it's a huge thing.
I feel like
finding the middle ground.
Yeah, influencing versus trying to force.
Mhm.
I want to at least be able to try and have that influence on my life. But when you try to actually force it, like it has to be this way, I have to make it this way, or with other people too. But on the other side of that too is talking about helping other people is where do you become an enabler? Which I think I've experienced a good bit of, where I've sympathized and listened to a point where I've actually like felt like I almost like did a disservice to this person, you know, after a certain extent. So it can
Yeah.
both ways.
I wonder if that relates back to Gethsemane, right?
Yeah.
When he says, like, I don't want to be here. So that's absolute acknowledgement of where I am and how I feel about it. I do not want to be here. Okay, but it's obvious I am. So can I align my will with yours? And so when I hear you saying that, that's what, Mike, when I'm able to say, okay, can I open, and the God force through me helps me move into a different place. That's like aligning my will with God. Whereas when I'm like, this is where I should be in my human way, I want to make it that way. I'm not open. Does that resonate at all? What we're saying?
I don't know, it confused me a little bit, but I think I might have to think about it. Or are you saying when you're more open and not trying to control things, that you feel the light and more aligned with God?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, what I was trying to describe was like that when I feel like it's not okay for me to want to pursue a direction or change some things, then that's very frustrating, depressing, and I feel like it's I don't know, it's like a straitjacket. It limits me, and it and sometimes hearing too much about how I should be open and stuff like that makes me feel like it just depresses me, and then I don't do the things that I could do to change my life. And whereas if I feel like it's okay, you know, like trying to have a positive influence on my life is not the same as trying to force things to be a certain way, and it doesn't put me out of alignment. If I think that trying to have an influence on something in my life puts me out of alignment with God, then that creates a real inner conflict. I guess is what I'm
Right.
getting at.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but then I can also recognize where if I'm trying to control this and that and that and this and this, and like if there's one thing that's like not gonna see, now I'm like, shoot, what's this thing gonna be that I'm gonna have to let go of? You know, there's like one thing that's not gonna work out, or it's not gonna work out the way I want it to. Then like that's where I can see where I'm out of alignment, and actually that is where like I can see that like I don't know what's gonna happen. You know, I can't control everything. There's a lot of chaos, and this might go well, and this might not. And that's where when I recognize that I really can't control something, then letting go and letting God be there, and allowing God, like that's where then I can find peace with that. It's like, but that's where it's, the serenity prayer, like that's a lot of what I think does come down to. It's like recognizing it's kind of like, God, let me control the things I can control. But help me recognize when I can't control things, I might as well let go. I can't control them, right?
Yeah.
So
I think I hear a lot of that reflected in my own mind, like it's one this way or it's that way, it's this way or it's that way, right? Like I'm in control or I'm not in control. I'm in control. And I think, what I hear and what Amy was saying is something I think about, like there's a third point. It's finding that third point that's outside of the dichotomy, right? Where God's will is, or where the opening is, or whatever. Like, where's the third point when the mind is saying it's this way or it's that way, right? Where's those 2 points? Where's the third point? Out there somewhere. So we were going to do a little bit of practice or ritual with each class. And so we probably should do that before we're running.
Okay.
Totally out of time here.
All right, so take a couple of deep breaths, close your eyes and get comfortable. And I'm gonna do a guided imagery and take us into the darkness. So imagine that the light is waning. And you're in a place where there aren't any street lights or internal lights in your house or anything like that. Nothing that is light is around you. And slowly the sun goes away. And you're sitting in the darkness, and notice, how does the darkness feel? And breathe into it. Breathe into that dark, dark place. And let it overwhelm your senses. And then notice your imagination. Is there anything in the darkness with you? Is it a thought or a feeling? Let go of whatever that thing is and turn again to the darkness. Let it fill your eyes and your ears with its presence. Let it caress your skin. Let it caress your heart. And notice again that you can breathe in this darkness. And take deep breaths. Let it embrace you like a blanket. And then see if there's anything that is speaking to you now in that darkness. Any voice, any presence. And what does it have to say? What are the words that come to me? Or what is the image? And once that you have received that, then come back to this room. Take some more deep breaths and open your eyes.